I never meant for this to happen. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But the truth had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long, waiting for the right moment to break free. And tonight it finally did. It started subtly, small moments that seemed insignificant at first. A glance held for just a second longer than necessary. A brush of his fingers against mine when he handed me something. The way his voice softened whenever he spoke to me. These weren't grand declarations of love, but they were enough to make my heart race in a way I hadn't felt in years. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining things, that I was simply reading too much into friendly gestures. After all, he was just a friend, someone who had always been there, standing in the periphery of my life, never stepping too close. But that distance had been closing in lately, whether we admitted it or not. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a casual gathering, nothing unusual. But when I laughed at something he said, I caught him looking at me, not the way a friend looks at another, but the way a man looks at a woman he wants. It sent a shock through me, as if he had just peeled away every excuse I had been clinging to. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to escape the weight of that look. It was as if he had seen something inside me that I had been trying so hard to bury. The longing, the ache, the silent plea for something more. I tried to shake it off, to convince myself that I was just lonely, that my emotions were playing tricks on me. But the problem with feelings is that once they're acknowledged, they refuse to be ignored. The next time we met, everything felt different. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, an invisible thread pulling us closer with every passing second. And I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. I fought it, I really did. I reminded myself of the life I had built, of the promises I had made, of the lines that weren't meant to be crossed. But every time I saw him, those reasons felt smaller, weaker, less convincing. It wasn't just attraction. It was something deeper, something I couldn't explain but felt in every inch of my being. And if I was being honest with myself, I had been waiting for an excuse to give in. That excuse came in the form of silence, the kind that stretched between us when we were alone, heavy with meaning, begging to be broken. And I knew, in that moment, that it was only a matter of time before I did something I couldn't take back. I couldn't fight it anymore. I didn't want to. So I picked up my phone, took a deep breath, and sent the message that would change everything. The moment I hit send, my heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stared at my phone, waiting, second-guessing every word I had typed. Maybe I had made a mistake. Maybe he would ignore it. Maybe he would say no, and that would be the end of it. But then, the screen lit up with his reply. Are you sure? A simple question, but loaded with meaning. He wasn't oblivious to what this meant. He knew, just as well as I did, that this wasn't just an innocent invitation. My fingers trembled as I typed back. Yes. Minutes passed. Then, okay, I'll be there in an hour. I put the phone down, exhaling sharply, my hands gripping the edge of the table. There was no turning back now. My mind raced through the possibilities, through every reason I should have stopped this before it started. But reason had left me the moment I sent that message. I moved around the house, straightening things that didn't need to be straightened, adjusting details that didn't matter. My reflection in the mirror looked different, flushed cheeks, restless eyes. I was nervous, excited, terrified. The sound of a car pulling up outside sent a jolt through me. I froze, heart hammering against my ribs. A second later, a knock at the door. I hesitated, just for a moment. Just long enough for the weight of my decision to settle deep inside me. And then I opened the door. He stood there, expression unreadable. There was no small talk, no unnecessary pleasantries. Just silence stretching between us, charged with everything we weren't saying. I stepped aside, letting him in. He moved past me, his presence filling the space in a way that felt too significant. The air felt heavier now, every breath deliberate. I turned to face him, my pulse unsteady. I wasn't sure you'd come. His gaze met mine. I wasn't sure I should. Another silence. Another unspoken question hanging between us. I could still stop this. I could still step back. But I didn't. I motioned toward the couch, but he didn't move. Neither did I. It was as if we were both waiting for the other to break first. "This isn't right," he said quietly, but his voice lacked conviction. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Then why did you come?" He didn't answer, and he didn't have to, because we both knew the truth. The distance between us was shrinking, whether we wanted it to or not. I could feel it, this invisible force pulling us closer, dissolving whatever restraint had kept us apart all this time. And then it happened, a moment of hesitation, of uncertainty, before something deeper took over. Something neither of us had the strength to fight anymore. I had invited him over, knowing exactly what I was doing. And now I had to face what came next. His breath was unsteady, matching mine. Neither of us moved, but the space between us was vanishing, second by second. The weight of everything we had been holding back was suffocating, pressing down on us, daring us to let go. Then, his hand brushed against mine, not an accident, not hesitation, but something deliberate. A silent acknowledgement that we had already crossed the line in our minds long before this moment. I should have stepped back. I should have said something to break the tension. But I didn't. I let it happen. His fingers traced my wrist, slow, cautious, as if testing the boundaries we had already shattered. I felt my breath hitch, my skin burning where he touched me. It was such a small thing, yet it carried the weight of everything we weren't saying. He searched my face, waiting for a sign to stop. I didn't give him one. His hands framed my face, and in that split second, I knew this was the moment. The one that would change everything. There would be no pretending after this, no going back to the way things were. When his lips met mine, it wasn't soft or hesitant. It was desperate, like a dam breaking after years of pressure. I felt the tension dissolve into something more powerful, more consuming. I clung to him, my hands gripping his shirt as if holding on for dear life. Time blurred. I forgot where we were, who we were supposed to be. I only knew that I had never felt more alive, more seen, than in that moment. But then reality crept in. The distant sound of my phone vibrating on the table. The faint echo of a car passing outside. The sudden awareness of everything I was risking. I pulled away first, breathless, my heart slamming against my ribs. His forehead rested against mine, his hands still cradling my face. "We shouldn't have done that," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He didn't let go. "But you wanted it." I did. I still did. That was the problem. My mind was at war with my body, screaming at me to stop, to think, to remember who I was supposed to be. I stepped back, putting space between us that felt unnatural now. His expression was unreadable, his hands still lingering in the air before he let them fall to his sides. "I should go," he said, but he didn't move. I nodded, arms wrapped tightly around myself, as if that could hold everything together.
"Yeah."
Another silence. Another long, painful moment where we both realized what we had done. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out the door. And just like that, everything changed. The door closed behind him, but the moment lingered, hanging in the air like a ghost that refused to leave. My heart was still racing, my lips still tingling from the kiss that should have never happened. I stood there, unmoving, trying to make sense of what I had just done. I had spent so long pretending this feeling didn't exist, convincing myself that it was harmless. But there was no denying it now. I had let it happen. I had wanted it. Guilt crept in slowly at first, like a whisper in the back of my mind. Then it hit me all at once, a suffocating weight pressing down on my chest. My hands trembled as I ran them through my hair, exhaling shakily. What had I done? I glanced at my phone. A missed call from my husband. My stomach twisted as I stared at his name on the screen. Did he know? Had he sensed something? Or was this just an ordinary call from a man who trusted me completely? The thought made my chest tighten. He had never given me a reason to doubt him, never made me feel unwanted or unloved. And yet I had gone and done the one thing that could destroy everything. I paced the room, my mind spinning. Should I tell him? Should I confess before the guilt consumed me whole? But then what? What would be left of us if I did? I thought about the man who had just walked out of my door. Would he feel the same guilt gnawing at him? Or would he pretend it never happened, burying it deep, just like I was about to? The sound of my phone ringing again made me jump. I stared at it, pulse hammering, then silenced the call. I couldn't face him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I told myself it had been a mistake, that it had meant nothing. But I knew better. The truth was, for those few stolen moments, I had felt something I hadn't felt in years. And that scared me more than anything. The next day, everything felt different. My husband greeted me the same way he always did, unaware of the storm raging inside me. But I felt it, every lie, every secret, every unspoken word weighing me down. I saw him again, the man I should have never let in. His eyes met mine across the room, and in that second, we both knew. We could pretend all we wanted, but we had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. I smiled at my husband, pretending everything was fine. But deep down, I knew the truth. Some betrayals don't need to be exposed to destroy everything. Some secrets don't need to be spoken to haunt you forever. And this was one of them.